The exploration of Aemond Targaryen within Fire and Blood is incredibly thin, and his relationship with Alys Rivers as well as Alys's characterization is barely more than a mention within the text. But fascinatingly, House of the Dragon has already managed to transform Aemond into an entirely different character than the one that fans believed existed on the page. And they clearly have free rein to do whatever they want with Alys Rivers as well as the relationship that is going to develop between Aemond and Alys. Alys is a very interesting character from the point of view of the book and the TV series, because the person that is described in Fire and Blood sounds a lot like a pseudo-Melisandre. Alys's origin story is a bit clearer and a bit more mundane than Melisandre's, though. She is said to be a bastard child from House Strong and acts as a wet nurse in Harrenhal. It's speculated that Alys may be the illegitimate daughter of Lionel Strong. But like Melisandre, some believe that she was considerably older than she looked, with Fire and Blood's historical accounts marking her down as at least 40 years of age, but potentially in her 60s, 70s, or even beyond. So, presuming that she truly was an illegitimate Strong, she may have actually been born into Lionel's generation, if not even earlier. The historical record also claims that, despite her long and illustrious career as a wet nurse in Harrenhal, all of her own children had been stillborn, and it was theorized that perhaps these children were some kind of payment in a Faustian bargain that granted her the impressive magical powers that she apparently possessed. And, although Mushroom the Fool's retelling of any story in this era of Westerosi history should be taken very lightly, he alleged that Alys Rivers was actually the wet nurse of Harwin and Larys Strong, which opens up an interesting if small possible plot thread for House of the Dragon, if they decide to take Larys's character development into a more magical direction. Given the legends that have haunted Harrenhal since the death of Harren the Black, it is even more difficult to suss out what is real and what is fake about Alys Rivers. She truly could be the Melisandre of House Strong. But considering how vague her backstory is and considering how melodramatic the lore surrounding the entire Dance of the Dragons became, it's also not beyond belief that she was nothing more than a forceful woman of questionable birth. But the one element of her character arc that seems to be undisputed is her deep relationship with Aemond Targaryen. Again, although Fire and Blood offers little in the way of explanation when it comes to Alys and Aemond's connection, it seems to be universally agreed upon that they did play significant roles in each other's lives. And it will be incredibly interesting to see how House of the Dragon plays this out. Although House of the Dragon has not yet surpassed Game of Thrones in many ways, one aspect of its storytelling has distinguished itself from the prior series already, as one of the best elements of House of the Dragon thus far has been the complexity and nuance of its relationship development. Namely, House of the Dragon has far outshone Game of Thrones when it comes to portraying the subtle layers of thorny power dynamics that exist within the friendships, familial relationships, and romances of all these characters. The political, social, gender, sexual, and racial dynamics of many of House of the Dragon's most important relationships are actually shockingly intricate considering how short the series has been thus far. Whether it's Daemon's grooming of Rhaenyra, Rhaenyra's exploitation of Ser Criston, or Viserys' manipulation of Alicent, House of the Dragon has added many shades of subtle nuance to how some characters exercise romantic power over others, in a way that Game of Thrones really never did in relationships like those between Cat and Ned or Jaime and Cersei. So that makes the potential for Aemond and Alys's relationship incredibly interesting. As of now, we know almost nothing about them beyond the fact that they were together, and the presence and functions of their individual forms of power presents the possibility for a really unusual dynamic that can go in almost any direction. There are many elements of Fire and Blood that are clearly meant to mirror characters, relationships, and storylines in A Song of Ice and Fire, and the connection between Alys Rivers and Aemond Targaryen is obviously meant to be analogous to the allegiance between Melisandre and Stannis Baratheon. But as we can already see, the Aemond Targaryen of House of the Dragon is no Stannis, and it's entirely possible, if not probable, that Alys is nothing like Melisandre beyond her magical powers and proximity to a prince. Aemond Targaryen supposedly falling in love with a strong bastard is legendary, iconic behavior on its own. But beyond that, the potential complexities of their relationship are nearly limitless. and their dynamic within the world of Westeros specifically is a really intriguing area that House of the Dragon can explore. Obviously, on its face, Aemond is the one who possesses the most power in the relationship. Arguably, at this point, he possesses the most power in the world, period, given that he is a prince of Westeros and rides the biggest dragon in existence. Ergo, he is presumably in a position of power over Alys Rivers. Given what we know about Alys's backstory, the truth of who she is and what she is to Aemond is a pretty confounding mystery. She is said to both be a bastard servant woman to House Strong and a potentially very old, very powerful witch, which in itself seems to be inherently contradictory. If one of these descriptions of her is true, it's hard to believe that the other one is, because a sorceress toiling away as a wet nurse in Harrenhal is a pretty odd choice. Or is it? Because yes, she is introduced as a low-born woman who does work that fits her societal station, but ultimately she winds up alongside the most powerful living person in the world. And that extraordinary event pretty clearly leads to some obvious questions, namely whether Alys set her sights on Aemond specifically, or if their romance was nothing more than a coincidence. This adds a really interesting facet to their relationship as well. Because even if Alys wasn't manipulating Aemond in the same way that Melisandre was manipulating Stannis, if the rumors about her magical abilities are true, that creates another angle to the power balance between Aemond and Alys. Ultimately, few things could ever rival the raw force of Vhagar, but an experienced sorceress could give someone like Aemond a run for his money. And again, if we are speculating based on the parallel of A Song of Ice and Fire, it's obvious that Melisandre exerted a great deal of power and control over Stannis, despite the fact that he was legally the rightful king and she was a foreign nobody. Similarly, if the rumors about Alys Rivers' age are true, that would also put her in a kind of power position over Aemond. Even at her most youthful, she'd still be around the age of Harwin and Larys, making her at least twice Aemond's age. But if she's yet another centuries-old witch, then her ability to manipulate the people around her is likely pretty solid. But of course, Fire and Blood is nothing if not an unreliable source of information. So the age or magical superiority that Alys Rivers allegedly holds over Aemond Targaryen could be little more than gossip designed to make Alys out as more powerful or more villainous than she ever truly was. Based on their social status alone, it's not beyond belief that Aemond coerced or downright forced Alys into a relationship in much the same manner that we've seen many powerful people exploit that power over those that they want. But based on the characterization of Aemond Targaryen in House of the Dragon thus far, it seems fairly unlikely that he would consciously take advantage of someone in that way. The inclusion of Aemond and Criston's scene with the Madam on the Street of Silk seems pretty pointed, and it paints Aemond as someone who is shy, uncomfortable, and likely inexperienced with romance or intimacy. That obviously doesn't preclude him from taking advantage of anyone, but it does indicate a possible intention for Aemond's future relationship with Alys. But either way, just based on Aemond's position in Westerosi society in comparison to Alys's, it's clear that there will have to be layers and facets to the power dynamic that exists between them. Given what they've done with Aemond's character thus far, the prospects for the character of Alys Rivers seem great. It will be fascinating to learn what's true and what's false about this servant from Harrenhal who played a brief role in one of the biggest political upheavals in the history of the Seven Kingdoms, especially since she could be anything from a low-born housemaid to a sorceress who changed the world, and anything in between. And her story with Aemond could be epic love, passing lust, or straight-up exploitation. But regardless of the outcome, it'll be captivating to see the real story behind Aemond Targaryen and Alys Rivers. But what do you think? Will Alys Rivers and her relationship with Aemond live up to the legends? Leave your comments and opinions below, and if you're interested in more content like this, like and subscribe.